Right, absolutely delighted to have Julie Westcott here on the show today for Changing Safety podcast. Me and Julie have known each other a long time and have had the pleasure of working through a number of avenues of health and safety global series, advisory councils, and of course a long-term participant of the global series events and built a very good credible relationship. But what I love most about Julie is her experience and her tenure and her commitment to the world of safety and health and environmental. So it's a delight to have Julie on today. How are you, Julie? You well?
Yeah, I'm really good. Thank you very much, Paul. In the midst of annual report and EY auditors, so this is a bit of light relief at the minute. Thank you.
Good. Well, it's an absolute pleasure to have you. We're going to be talking about I guess we're learning a little bit more about you and a bit about your experience, your background. So why don't you tell the viewers a bit about Julie Westcott?
Yeah, okay. So I started in the health and safety profession actually when I was pregnant with my son, who's now 22. I did my initial qualifications whilst I was 7, 8, 9 months pregnant, and then I finished off my NEBOSH certificate during maternity leave. Um, I then went back to work as a health and safety manager advisor on one site, which then progressed to 3 sites. I then moved into DS Smith, which was, well, I moved into their paper division, so quite sort of like heavy industry, that kind of stuff. And then I moved kind of like through the ranks really at DS Smith until I got to the group safety director role. I've been there for about 13 years, so it was time for a change. I moved to another company that made wooden doors. I was there for 18 months, and I now work for SIG PLC, who are a building materials distributor. So really different from what I've done before, but absolutely fantastic. Yeah, all over Europe. Brilliant people, really enjoying it.
Wonderful. I guess there's a question for you because what we've seen a lot actually, which has surprised me through the podcast, getting to know people, is a lot of people didn't fell into health and safety. They didn't actually
Yeah.
go out specifically to become a HSC professional. How about you?
Yeah, well, that's really quite interesting. So I have a social psychology degree,
Wow.
and I came out almost at the time the market crashed in the UK. So
Mm.
trying to find a graduate job, nowhere, absolutely nowhere. So I went back to the factory that I'd worked in during my summers, and I did night shifts. Yeah, I was the first female machine operator. I then moved into quality actually, and then whilst I was pregnant, the health and safety officer kind of left and recommended me for that job. And yeah, that's where my health and safety career kind of took off. But I never purposefully went, I'm going to be a health and safety person. Yeah, and actually amongst my health and safety career, I have had a little bit of a dabble in other things as well. Yeah, I did HR for a period of time as well as safety, and I've also done risk as well as safety.
I just find that fascinating though. I mean that consistency. I think it's everybody that I've spoke to has said that they never intended to get an EHS. Do you think the world's changed a little bit more in terms of the profession that, certainly boots on the ground, millennials, people that we're trying to bring in, it's becoming more of a sought after profession and education for potential students and people coming out of university?
Yeah, I think that there's a difference. So when I first fell into it, and I'm not going to tell you my age, but when I first fell into it, yeah, safety was a relatively new profession. It wasn't as established as it is today. And today it is a firmly established profession. There are, qualifications that you need to achieve to get to, where you want to get to. You can do a degree in it, you can do a master's in it. That wasn't there at the time that I kind of started making my decisions. And I'm not entirely sure, and I'm sure we'll come on to this in a bit, what the perception of safety actually is and how many young people are going into the profession. I know that I try to play a really big part in making safety interesting, in making it, something that people would want to go for. but the outside profession of the outside perception of our profession is not always positive, I think.
No. Let's take the magnifying glass. Let's get straight into it then. Enough of the niceties. What's your perception of safety?
I think that most people who join the safety profession are noble. You know, they think it's a noble profession. They're trying to do the right thing. They generally care about what they do. I think it's unfortunate that there's this general perception of safety people, which is perpetrated by the media, and I think unconsciously by ourselves, of us being, you know, a compliance-led policeman, etc., etc. And I think that whilst there are a portion of people who are trying to change that, trying to move that, unless we actually go outside of the profession and we start seeking help and guidance from comms and marketing people to help us with that, that's not really going to budge, I don't think.
Mm. I find that really interesting because I agree with you. I actually had a conversation with Bruce from Huddle Culture,
Yeah.
and he asked me the question. He said, "What is safety?" And I had to take a moment. It's not an easy answer anyway, but is there more of a, we need perhaps more of a wider view, publicly of what and why safety, what is safety, why safety, why is it important outside of, businesses? Do you think that's something, we need as a united culture across?
Um, I think we perhaps need a vision.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? We need something that we're going, and we need to find our purpose. You know, I was listening to one of your earlier podcasts with James, and he was talking about the fact that if we don't change our purpose, if we don't change what we're doing, you know, we will end up down the same route as most quality people.
Mm,
You know, quality, as James said, you know, in the 70s, it was a massive big thing, you know, on all the management teams, on the board. And then it's just slowly made itself, you know, and it's just become something that somebody does now rather than actually something that influences or enthuses or motivates or engages, really.
why do you think that is?
Why do I think quality changed? Or
Yeah, quality change.
um, I think quality changed because it became too insular. I
Mm,
think there are a lot of, I mean, coming from a quality background, you know, there are a lot of theories and discussions and debates about, you know, what quality is, total quality management, you know, that quality one, all that sort of stuff. And people started jumping onto one or the other and galloping off down a particular route,
mm,
and then realizing that actually there's no practical or pragmatic way of implementing that within the business.
mm,
Quality in itself never changed from a technical issue to a
mm,
hearts and minds issue.
mm,
It was always about technical skills, you know, using your caliper to see how big the gap is and whether it meets the specification, that kind of stuff.
mm,
It never grew out of that particular bucket that it put itself in.
mm. What do you think the reason is? If we look at the board, if you look at when quality became priority,
Hmm.
and let's say I've heard a lot of talk around speak up culture being a priority in the boardroom at the moment.
Yeah.
What constitutes, from your perspective, something being a priority at the head table? What constitutes? Does it come down to P&L? What do you think personally?
I think it comes down to a wide range of things. I think there's obviously P&L, there's obviously balance sheet, but there's also, you know, what the right thing is to do. I mean,
Mm,
certainly at our board, you know, I'm in there every board meeting talking about safety. I'm in there twice a year talking about sustainability. And our board genuinely just want to do the right thing for the company and for our people.
brilliant.
But you've got to persuade them in some instances, not necessarily with my board, but with others, that actually these are the right things to do.
Mm,
And sitting there and saying, well, the Health and Safety Act says Section 4 says we've got to do this, isn't quite the right way of persuading a board.
mm. Where's the skills gap for the EHS professional at the moment? Because you're talking about some fundamental skills that, if you look at somebody that sort of fallen into the role of safety,
Yeah,
and somebody that's trained for safety,
yeah,
but that doesn't include, I've been bringing this up a lot, is that kind of sales marketing experience,
yeah.
that comes with being able to have really high quality conversations in the boardroom, all that kind of stuff. Where do you think the skills gaps are for the profession at the moment?
I think we're socialized into a particular way of safety management.
Mm,
There are certain qualifications that you need to do to be classed as a safety advisor or safety manager. You see them in all the job adverts. And those qualifications are technical compliance qualifications. They may have a section on leadership, perhaps,
mm,
but no real kind of it's all technical, it's all compliance, it's all this is what the law says, this is what you have to do. This
mm,
is what the hazard is, this is how you can protect it.
mm,
Within safety qualifications in general, I mean, don't get me wrong, there are some IOSH approved courses out there that are about behavior or about leadership or whatever. But these real leadership management soft skills, the persuading, the influencing, the being able to use data effectively, being able to make an argument, being able to, have a good, decent discussion.
mm.
These are things that just aren't taught within the curriculum for safety at the moment.
Sure. And that's the gap that we need to fill.
Yes, yeah, and that's a really big gap that needs to be filled because a technical expert is just going to go exactly the same way as quality went.
Mm. So, if you were to pick off the top of your head a series of skills, what would they be that are missing from that gap?
Yeah, I think there are that they're obviously leadership, how to lead teams, how to be seen as a leader, how to act as a leader, how to kind of walk the talk.
Mhm.
In my role, it's influencing, how to influence people, how to motivate people, how to have conversations, um, how to be infinitely curious.
Mm.
Curiosity is such a big one that a lot of courses just completely miss out, even those that are dealing with leadership or management skills. They they talk about the theory and they don't actually give you the time to practice.
Nice. So let's get into the safety space as it stands at the
Yeah.
moment. The podcast is called Changing Safety.
Yes.
Would you agree that we are a little bit stuck at the moment?
Yeah. Yeah. Systems and processes can only take us somewhere, can't they? Yeah, we're socialized into believing that systems and processes and compliance are the things that we need to do. But that only gets you so far along the maturity journey. It doesn't win hearts and minds. It doesn't influence behavior. It doesn't change behavior. It doesn't make safety the way that we always do things around here.
Sure.
And and a lot of the conversations, and I know that we've had some really interesting conversations on this, but a lot of the discussions about the different theories that are out there at the moment, the whole kind of like safety one, safety two, safety differently, hop, spore, there's a whole ream of them out there. And and for some reason or another, they seem to think that they're right and everyone else is wrong,
Mm.
which which for me actually it does two things. It restricts our choices. Well, if you were looking to make a choice, it would restrict your choice because you go, okay, which one do I like? Well, hop applies for me. I'm gonna, disappear. I'm gonna, do my whole program on hop. But importantly, it actually restricts innovation.
Mm.
And I used that analogy of the sweet shop with you last time, I think, Paul. Yeah. I like pick and mix. I want to go into what was Woolworths and I want to have one of those, one of those, one of those, one of those, because that's how I think I'm going to change stuff in my organization. And actually, if I take a cherry sweet and a cola sweet and I mix them together, I get cherry cola. Somebody must have done that at some point to get cherry cola. So why are we only eating cherry sweets or only eating cola bottles or only eating bonbons and criticizing everybody else who wants to eat something that's a little bit different to us?
Yeah. And
I I like the debate, I like the discussions,
yeah.
but actually, what we choose really should be based on our organization, the culture and maturity of our organization. And
Mm.
that means there might be some stuff from, I don't know, hop, which, makes perfect sense.
Mm.
There might be some stuff from safety differently that makes sense.
Mm.
There might be some stuff from, safety 1 and 2 that makes sense. And you
Mm.
pull those bits out and you then use all the resources that you have available to you and you create what is right for your organization and your style.
Mm.
And by the way, that also means that in different parts of your organization you might have a different strategy or a different approach because the culture and the maturity is also different.
Yeah.
It's that flexibility that I see missing a little at the moment.
Yeah. I always think of God bless my father, right? But his way of managing me as a child was just one way.
Yeah.
And what I learned a lot from my dad. I love him to pieces, and I think the world's changed a lot since back when I was a child. But I look at my children, and I've got four, and I look at how I manage my children and look after them and deal with things when they do things good and when they do things bad, and systems. We create these systems. Me and
Yeah.
Kate have systems, but what works for Arch might not work for Harper,
Yeah.
or certainly what maybe worked in on Harper in one disciplinary or one praise might not be the same in another situation.
Yeah.
So I'll take pieces from how I've done things in the past and what I've learned in my experience as I've grown as a man, as a father. It's the same as growing as a manager, as a leader when you've been in other companies. How you come up with ways in which you can innovate to be able to be better as a business person, as a leader, as a manager. And I hate the thought of being restricted to my decision making as a decision maker, because you're also at risk of what if you get it wrong, and
Yeah.
that is a lot of the one of the hardest things about making decisions. And that's why you have to, like I say, pick and mix, use your
Yeah.
experience and take from different learning curves and processes to be able to come up with the right solution.
But there are other sweeties as well.
Yeah.
There isn't just that section of safety sweeties.
Mm.
There is a big section of like HR sweeties or finance sweeties or comms or marketing sweeties. The whole sweet shop, it's just packed with sweets. And you should be able to go in and not just go to the safety sweet section,
Yeah.
but walk along and go, yeah, that's that I could, yeah, that
Yeah.
sounds quite interesting. And yeah, that's quite interesting. And oh, I've learned quite a lot from over there. I'm going to apply that. So you have a bag of stuff, which it is literally your goodie bag or sport billy bag, I say to my team. If anyone remembers Sport Billy, you get this Sport Billy bag full of things that you've gained, you've experienced, you've tried, you've read about, you've talked with other people about, you've discussed with a whole range of people about, and they're all in your Sport Billy bag. And
Mm.
then you pull out some of these for certain circumstances and you use them, but at the same time, you're filling up your Sport Billy bag all the time.
Mm. Do you know what I'm gonna do at UK? I'm gonna create a tuck shop, and I'm gonna label the sweets hop, safety differently, and I'm gonna see which ones who takes one of each, or
Thanks for those. Yeah.
call them out. No, and you know what? Everybody has a right to their own. We're never trying to condemn anybody
No.
for making decisions. You know, I know some people that are really passionate about safety differently. That it's all about that, and that's absolutely fine. But what we have to do is, and the one thing again, I only look at this as an outsider perspective. Although I have an pivotal role to play in EHS as an events organizer to bring people together, certainly from hearing it a lot of the I like you the kind of condemnation and the arguing and the bitterness between certain systems online, or certainly on LinkedIn, it's getting a little bit much, right? I mean, what do you think? What do you think then perhaps needs to change in safety?
I think the training that we get needs to change. I think it needs to start with that, because it doesn't matter. You know, when you look at, behavior, under times of stress, or, overexcitement, or whatever, you return to default. So if your training is right, if you've got those soft skills to start with, and then you go do the training, or the training involves those soft skills, then we've got a better chance of getting more rounded people out. I think there are also some qualifications or some training that safety people can do, which is outside of the safety realm. Things like, diplomas in management studies are really useful for being able to understand P&Ls and balance sheets, being able to understand what HR do, being understand why comms and marketing so important. I think we need to really use our comms, marketing, and sales teams
Mm,
to change this perception, because we're never going to get young people into the organization, into the profession, if we don't change what we believe safety is. And actually, if we don't change what we believe or other people believe safety is, actually it's never going to change, because we're going to be always going to be put in the same box. If you checked the PPE today, have you gone around and made sure the guards are all right? Have you made sure that all the fire exits are closed? That kind of stuff. So we need to change that. I think we really need to look outside the bubble.
mm,
And I know that's what I was talking about in my sports billy bag, but we really do. We need to have a look at what's out there. We need to investigate. We need to have conversations. We need to be a lot more open and curious in our thinking. And we need to start innovating, and we need to learn to fail,
mm,
because I think sometimes that's the reason why certain people, I mean, particularly safety people, because we're quite generally risk adverse as a group of people. Yeah, we might dip our toes in the innovation pool a little bit, and then a little bit more. But actually, we're not the type of people that take a run and jump and dive into the innovation pool.
mm,
And sometimes we need to learn to actually do that, maybe as a side project, as something to find something new, to find something that works for us. And that means learning to fail sometimes, and understanding why you failed, and applying that, putting that in your bag, and moving on.
mm. The role of the EHS professional, and I mentioned this last week actually, that it has changed considerably. Or I wouldn't say it's necessarily changed. I just think people are opening their eyes that the job and the
Yeah.
role is a lot wider than management systems. It
Yes.
is very much, it's a commercial role. It's a commercial business led role. It is, there's so much. It's managing people, really
Yeah.
is a lot of managing people. It's if there's anybody that has access to you as a professional have access to every single department with what you do. And I mean, you've kind of answered my question that I was going to sort of put to you was, do we need to think outside of the box? I mean, it's a straight up, yeah, right?
Yeah, of course we do. I mean, there are things that I have learnt so much from just working with other departments. I think, working with HR, particularly L&D, and I know James brought up a similar kind of story, but just understanding different learning styles. You
Mm,
know, the whole Honey and Mumford learning styles, how different people learn, how you can then apply that to the training that you do, how you can change the way you do your training to make it more effective.
mm,
That sort of stuff has just been massively influential in the way that I would train or organize, or even the way that I do my kind of group team meetings as well.
mm,
I think there's stuff like from comms about, and you'll see some books behind me on comms, but you know, about how to tell a story.
mm,
Yeah, so tell your story. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And the whole purpose of a communication should be for something, you
mm,
know, not just to tell people. You're doing it for a reason. So what's the reason? Identify the reason. Recognize your audience.
mm,
Make sure you understand who your audience is, who you're trying to, communicate with, and
mm,
not to, with.
mm,
Um, Finance, data analysis, trend analysis, the use of AI and getting behind some of that stuff and using the bots to do the work for you, understanding where your business is in terms of P&L and things like that. I mean, they're so fundamentally important to the way that we do the leadership part of our job. You can't ignore them. I mean, if you ignore them, we're just going to be policemen forever.
And I'm completely on board with everything that you've said, and it's pretty much completely aligned with the direction Global Series are going with 3.0 and the direction of the podcast with changing safety. But there is, although this sounds, of course, the adoption and the learning and the skill and the training is quite complex, but the solution, right, is think outside of the box and do everything that you've just said and become a much more well-rounded executive and business leader within
Yes,
EHS.
just
But
be curious.
is there resistance, and why?
Y- Yes, I think that there is a level, and I wouldn't call it conscious resistance, Paul.
Mm,
I think there is a fear, as with any role that actually should be integrated into the business.
mm,
There is a fear from some people that that means that my job won't be there anymore.
right. Yeah, I
So
get
I
that.
think that there's a fear of, I've always seen my job as embedding safety so firmly into a business that actually you don't need me anymore.
Mm,
I can walk away for 6, 9 months and everything just going to continue in the way that it should. And I have no fear about that, but there are a lot of people that do.
mm. Yeah, and I get that, and that really answers a lot of questions because I think that's what I see. I see is that there's an element of kind of forging and pushing stuff. And again, I said this about another subject, that kind of sake of optics. There gets a time where if you're saying the same thing over and over again, it kind of loses its meaning.
Yeah.
And there is a lot of messaging that I see and it's not pinning out anybody at all. It's not trying to shame anybody. But I think there is an element of I'm seeing a lot of messaging going out over and over again, and it's just reestablishing worth rather than actually creating a need for change. And I mean, I've always been somebody that unless I feel like I'm genuinely making this is the same about Global Series, hence the reason we've put it all on the line in
Yeah.
2024 we put every penny we have to reshape this organization because I don't want a transactional event that's a nice to have. I want it to be a must have because it genuinely makes a difference to the profession. And if I achieve that, I'll sleep easy. But yeah, I mean, it's moving forward with the future. Then let's look at, and we're coming close to the end now, but I see a huge opportunity in the future of the profession with fresh ideas coming in from I don't like the term young because you could be in another organization where you could be
Yeah,
like
yeah, you could.
I could
Yeah.
suddenly come into
Mm.
EHS as a health and safety leader, but because I have a very different set of skills, And I think that's actually might be what might be needed, you know? So what do you think about the future of the profession? Where do you see the opportunity?
So the opportunity is really about us becoming part of the leadership of the business. Yeah, we've got to do the compliance stuff. We all know we've got to do that, but it's not just about that. It's about becoming integral to the business
Mm,
as almost like a coach or a
mm,
supporter or a an influencer,
mm,
to use my son's terminology. It's the underlying kind of current there of somebody who's able to go, okay, so what about this? And how does that work? And it's all about value add.
yeah,
Yeah, an ex-boss once said to me, it's fine having safety people, but they've got to give value add. So if we can give value add, not just taking or telling, if we can give, the help and the support to our sales teams to get more sales, if we can show that good safety performance also equals, more sales, if we can show that actually good safety is just about good management and good leadership,
mm,
if we can get our leaders talking and having conversations, we help to contribute to building up a culture.
yeah.
And we all know that culture eats strategy for breakfast.
I think on that absolute wonderful note, I think we'll call it there. But Julie, I mean, that was absolutely fantastic, I must say. And it's helped me as well because, I do sit up at night and I do think about, I do care. I do care. Much like any EHS professional, I've got to care for your organization's people. Every organization that we work with, I've got to care for their people because we just go and do events in some other industry. But what I want to see is change. And, we can put on events, we can certainly provide the right content, but we just want to see it make a difference at the tail end. And that's what we're trying to achieve. And you've really ticked a lot of boxes, not from a compliance perspective, but from, from an educational perspective. It's really helped me look at things differently, and I really hope the viewers see that as well. Julie, if people want to reach you, best way to get in touch?
LinkedIn, please, yeah, join me, connect with me on LinkedIn. We can have a chat. I've done quite a lot of chats from meeting people over LinkedIn over the last 3 or 4 years. So really happy to talk to anyone who wants to have a chat, wants to pick my brain, or most importantly, has a different view to me because I like to be challenged and I like to learn. So
Yeah.
really looking forward to that.
And I think that's the important thing as well, is we need to build these networks out. I'll end on that is, we need to continue. I've always said, 10 computers are stronger than one, and, building these communities, and to challenge as well. Absolutely. The point of this is we all want to agree that, the world of safety, we want it to move forward, and that's the purpose of this. If anybody can take a little bit of nugget of information, just one nugget of information from Julie or any of the podcasts that we've done so far, we're doing something great.
Yeah, fully agreed. Thank you very much, Paul.
You're more than welcome. Thanks, Julie.
Bye bye.